"Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel." She didn't see me walk in. Not at first. The music was loud. Laughter louder. Wine glasses clinked. I stood in the hallway for a moment holding the bouquet. Just hesitating. That already says a lot, doesn't it? A husband holding flowers, afraid to give them to his wife. I wasn't coming home from war. I wasn't groveling after a fight. I was just coming home early with flowers because I missed her, because I still cared. Because maybe deep down I thought she'd smile the way she used to. But I should have known better. Marina, my wife, was holding a cord in the living room, wine swirling in her glass like a queen at her throne. Her friends surrounded her like handmaids. Jen smirking. Courtney already tipsy, and a new one. Olive skin, soft curls, eyes that actually noticed me. I hadn't seen her before. I stepped in and held up the bouquet. Light pink leas in pale dahlias carefully picked by me, not some random guy in a rush at CVS. "These reminded me of you," I said. Just that. Marina didn't even blink. She looked at her friends, then back at me, and said loud enough for the whole block to hear, "Oh, how retro flowers. What is this?" 2004. Laughter, snorting. Courtney actually clapped. Jin leaned over and muttered, "Maybe next time bring her a TikTok filter." I stood there looking like a magician whose rabbit had vanished mid-act. My fingers tightened around the stems. I cleared my throat and turned to leave, but then that new girl spoke. "They're beautiful," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it sliced through the mockery like glass. "If someone gave me flowers like that, I wouldn't make fun of him." The room fell still, and I did something I didn't plan, didn't even think about. I walked over, handed her the bouquet, and said, "Then maybe you should have them." Marlena's mouth opened, but no words came out. Just silence. The woman, her name was Reyna, I'd learn later, looked at me like I was a ghost from a better world. She took the flowers gently, almost reverently. "Thank you," she whispered. And she meant it. Marina blinked. "You're giving my flowers to my guest now." "They weren't your flowers," I said. "You made that clear." She started to say something else, but I didn't wait to hear it. I turned, walked upstairs, and sat on the edge of the bed, wondering what just happened. But that little act, that impulsive, awkward handoff of a bouquet, would become the start of something far bigger than I ever expected. Something that would unravel lies I didn't even know were being told. And in the middle of it all, that smile Reyna gave me would keep echoing in my head, because someone noticed me, and that was more than I'd felt in months. Reyna's smile stayed with me longer than it should have. I lay in bed that night, eyes open, heart racing, not with attraction, but with something more unsettling. Guilt, validation, or maybe just the unfamiliar warmth of being seen even for a second. Meanwhile, Marina never came upstairs. I heard them laughing again an hour later like nothing happened, like I hadn't just been humiliated in my own living room. The next morning, she acted like it never happened. No apology, no mention of the flowers, just her usual distracted scrolling over coffee, wearing the same robe she wore when I proposed to her, back when I still believed love was loud enough to be heard. But everything started shifting after that night. Rhea began showing up more often. I thought maybe it was coincidence, but the way she looked at me told a different story. She was quieter than Marina's other friends, more observant. I caught her watching me once while I was fixing the broken door to the patio. Not in a flirty way, but like she was curious, like she couldn't figure out how someone like me ended up with someone like Marina. I couldn't figure it out either anymore. Then came the brunch. Marina threw this rooftop brunch for her birthday. She didn't ask if I was free, just told me I'd be there. I bought her this stupidly expensive bottle of wine she mentioned in passing weeks ago. Took me hours to track it down. I even wrote a card, something real about how I missed the version of us that didn't feel like roommates. I handed it to her before the guests arrived. She barely looked up. "Thanks," she muttered, then shoved it in her purse. No hug, no kiss, Just can you take pictures during the brunch? My phone's low on storage. So yeah, that was my role. Human selfie stick. When Raina showed up, something shifted again. She came over, smiled, and handed me a small wrapped box. "It's not much," she said. "Just thought of you," Marina noticed. She raised an eyebrow. "That's cute," she said sharply. "Now everyone's giving Hugh presents." I opened it anyway. Inside was a small hardcover book, Letters to a Young Poet. The same book I used to quote from when Marina and I were dating. I didn't even remember mentioning it out loud. "You remembered?" I whispered, stunned. Raina nodded. "People remember things that matter." I swear I saw Marina's jaw clench, but the final spark didn't come until the end of brunch. Everyone was tipsy. Music was playing, and Marina decided it would be funny to have everyone go around and roast their partner or ex. Her friends loved it. When it got to her, she raised her glass and said to Hugh, "Who still thinks flowers solve emotional distance, and who once cried because I forgot our civersary?" Laughter, loud, cruel. Rhea didn't laugh. She stood up, walked over, and whispered something in Marina's ear. I couldn't hear it, but Marina's face darkened instantly. Then Raina walked out. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. I followed 10 minutes later. I found her waiting outside by her car, arms crossed. "You okay?" I asked. She turned to me slowly. "Why do you let her treat you like that?" I didn't have an answer. Maybe I didn't want one. But her next words, they split my world wide open. She told us once at dinner that she married you because you were the safest option, that no matter what she did, you'd never leave. Is that true, Hugh? Are you really that safe? I didn't answer because deep down I was afraid I was. Raina's words didn't just echo in my head. They stayed like a cold draft under a locked door. "Are you really that safe?" she'd asked. And I hated that I didn't know the answer. For the next few days, I replayed everything. Marina's smirk when I handed her the flowers, her laughter at brunch, the way her eyes only softened when other people were watching. I'd spent years convincing myself that her coldness was stress or exhaustion, or just how she is. But Raina had cracked something open that I couldn't close again. By Wednesday, Marina was pretending nothing had happened. She even sent me a text that morning. "Pick up something for dinner." No apology, no conversation, just orders. I grabbed takeout, came home early, and found her sitting on the couch with her laptop laughing. "Who's that?" I asked. She turned the screen away a little too fast. "Just work?" she said too casually. Her job was marketing, sure, but I'd never seen a corporate spreadsheet make anyone giggle. That night, after she went to bed, I checked her laptop. I know I shouldn't have, but something told me to. What I found made my stomach twist, a string of messages on a chat app one didn't recognize. Not explicit, not even romantic. Just intimate, the kind of tone you only use with someone who makes you feel alive. I scrolled further and saw a saved contact named A. No last name, just a whoever he was. He knew things about her I didn't. Inside jokes, late-night talks, and once, God, I still remember the line. "You make me feel like I'm 20 again." The next day, I said nothing. I walked around like a ghost, smiling when she looked, staying quiet when she didn't. I wanted to scream, but instead I just folded laundry and nodded through her stories about her clients. She didn't notice the difference. Maybe she never would. But then 2 nights later, she slipped up. She came home smelling like someone else's cologne. Expensive, woody, masculine. I knew that smell because I'd bought that same brand. Once years ago when I still believed small gestures mattered. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I just waited, observed, noticed how she smiled at her phone. How she hit her screen when I passed by. How she suddenly started humming while cooking. That was the most painful part, seeing her happy, just not because of me. Raina texted me the next morning. Don't ask how she got my number. I guess Marina had mentioned it once, or maybe she'd found me online. She wrote, I shouldn't have said what I did the other day, but you deserve better. I stared at that message for a long time before replying. You didn't lie. We started talking slowly, innocently at first. She asked how I was. I said, fine, which was a lie, and she knew it. Then she asked, if you weren't afraid, what would you do? And I didn't know what to say, because for the first time in years, someone wasn't mocking me, fixing me, or ignoring me. She was listening. That night, Marina said she had another work dinner. I nodded, helped her zip her dress, and told her she looked nice. When she left, I sat in silence for an hour before grabbing my phone. I sent Reina a single text. I think I'm done being safe. Her reply came instantly, then start with the truth. And that was the moment I realized the truth wasn't just about Marina's betrayal. It was about mine, too. The one where I betrayed myself by staying quiet for too long. But what happened the next night made every truth I thought I knew crumble completely. I didn't sleep much after that message. Then, start with the truth. Ria didn't realize what she was asking. The truth wasn't just some dramatic outburst or some grand confrontation. It was years of silences swallowed, hundreds of small humiliations I let slide in the name of being the bigger person. It was anniversaries forgotten by her, but always remembered by me. It was holding her hair when she was sick, comforting her through her career failures, only to be told months later that I was emotionally boring. The truth was, I was slowly disappearing in my own life, and nobody seemed to notice, not even me, until recently. The next night, Marina was supposed to be at another work dinner. She didn't even pretend to care about lying anymore. I watched her get dressed. Black heels, red lipstick, low-cut blouse, and pretend I didn't know she was dressing for someone else. She avoided eye contact the entire time. As she grabbed her purse, I said, "Want me to pick you up after?" Just to test her. She blinked. "No, I'll Uber. It's downtown. Traffic's a mess." She left before I could respond. I sat in the dark for a while. Then I got up, grabbed my keys, and followed her. I know how that sounds. Creepy, paranoid, pathetic even. But I wasn't looking to catch her in the act. I just needed the truth shoved in my face, so I finally stopped pretending. I stayed a few cars behind her Uber and watched it pull up to a restaurant I'd never heard of. She got out and walked right into the arms of a man in a tailored suit who greeted her with a kiss on the cheek that lasted a little too long. He looked like the human version of everything I wasn't. Tall, slick, confident. She laughed as they disappeared inside. I drove past the restaurant twice before parking on a side street and just sitting there. I don't know how long, maybe an hour, maybe more. My hands were shaking. Not from rage, but from this unbearable ache I didn't know how to name. Betrayal, yes, but also a kind of grief. Like watching someone burn down the house you built together and realizing they never even liked the furniture. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened a bottle of cheap red wine, sat on the porch, and sent Reina a text. "You were right," she replied instantly. "About what?" "All of it." Then a few seconds later, "Do you want to talk?" We met the next morning at a park. Not a romantic spot, just some benches near a duck pond. She brought coffee. I brought nothing. Not even a plan. We sat in silence for a while before I told her everything. How I'd followed Marina. How long the affair had probably been going on. How I'd pretended not to notice for months, maybe years. Reina didn't interrupt. She didn't pity me either. She just listened in a way Marina never had. And when I finally finished, she looked me dead in the eyes and asked, "So, what are you going to do now?" I stared at the water. "I don't know." She leaned in slightly. "Yes, you do. You're just scared to say it." And I realized she was right again, but I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Not yet. I went home that afternoon and found Marina already there. She was wearing the same dress from the night before and said something about a canceled meeting. She didn't look guilty, just tired. She asked if I could help her carry some boxes from the garage. I said, "Sure." That's the thing about being the safe one. You get very good at pretending you didn't just watch your life collapse while holding a screwdriver. But as I passed her the first box, something fell from the top. A birthday card, not addressed to me. It was from him, and it wasn't recent. Inside it read, "Every moment with you feels like borrowed time. Let's make it permanent soon." That was the moment I stopped pretending. The handwriting was elegant, confident, masculine, not rushed like mine always was. The kind of handwriting that comes from someone who's used to signing things, checks, contracts, love letters. I read the card again. "Let's make it permanent soon." The paper trembled in my hand, not because of wind, but because I couldn't hold still. There it was, tangible, undeniable. The affair wasn't just real, it was serious. And suddenly everything that had confused me over the past year made sense. The weekends she spent catching up on client work, the way she started turning her phone face down on the table, the passwords that used to be shared, but now changed. Even her fake laughter at brunch wasn't just cruelty. It was deflection. She was already halfway out the door, while I was still showing up with flowers. Thinking I could fix this, I stood there in the garage with that stupid card in my hand, the scent of mildew and old paint stinging my nose. And I realized something awful. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being phased out, like a feature in an app they quietly remove in an update. No warning, no explanation, just gone. When I walked back inside, Marina was in the kitchen pouring herself a glass of wine like it was any other afternoon. I held the card loosely at my side. She didn't notice. I watched her for a long moment, the way her mouth curved as she read something on her phone. She didn't look stressed or anxious. She looked happy, probably texting him. I wondered if he knew about me. If she framed me as some clingy, dull husband, she was too kind to leave. I bet he didn't know I cooked her favorite meals every Sunday, or that I once drove 3 hours in a storm just to bring her a dress she forgot for a wedding. I slipped the card into my back pocket, not because I wanted to hide it, but because I needed to hold on to it. A souvenir from the moment my last shred of denial died. Later that night, she got dressed again. Low neckline, heels, perfume. I hadn't smelled in months. "Going out?" I asked from the couch. She paused. "Yeah, just drinks with Shannon." I smiled like a man whose house wasn't on fire. "Tell her I said hi." She blinked, then grabbed her keys. "You're being weird." I shrugged. "We're a weird couple." She left without looking back. This time, I didn't follow. I didn't need to. I already knew where she was going, who she was meeting, and more importantly, I knew what I was about to do. I called Raina. "Do you still have those flowers?" I asked. She laughed quietly on the other end. "I dried them." "Why?" "I want to see them again." We met at her place this time. It wasn't a date. It wasn't some dramatic revenge plot. I just needed normal human. I sat on her couch while she made tea. The walls were lined with books, not photos of herself like Marina's House of Mirrors. And when she brought out the dried bouquet, carefully arranged in a small ceramic vase, I almost cried. "You kept them," I said, running my fingers over the papery petals. She sat beside me. Of course, they meant something. We talked for hours. I told her everything about the card, the lies, the slow erosion of who I was, and she didn't interrupt. She just listened. At one point, she reached over and touched my hand. Not romantic, not seductive, just present. "She doesn't see you," Raina said. "But I do." That's when I broke. The tears came. Not dramatic sobs, but quiet ones that you don't even realize are falling until your shirt's wet. And Raina didn't flinch. She just stayed there with me. That night, I didn't sleep at her place. I went home alone. I wasn't looking for a replacement. I was looking for myself. The man I used to be before Marina laughed him out of the room. And in the quiet of that night, I made a decision. The next flower I handed out wouldn't be for Marina, and it wouldn't be for Raina either. It would be for me. I wish I could tell you that the decision I made that night gave me peace. It didn't. It gave me anxiety. It gave me insomnia. It gave me chest pain so real. I almost drove myself to the ER just to make sure my heart hadn't given up before I had the chance to fix anything. But underneath all that noise, there was something else. Clarity. A terrifying kind of clarity. The kind that feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the only way forward is to jump. I spent the next few days acting normal, which ironically was the hardest performance of my life. I brought Marina her favorite coffee like I used to. I folded her laundry and even laughed at her TV shows I'd grown to resent. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and thought I was just over whatever imaginary sulk I'd been stuck in. That's the thing about people like her. They don't ask if you're okay. They just wait for you to return to being convenient. She never mentioned the card I'd found in the garage. Never asked why I was quieter than usual. Never even looked suspicious. That's how confident she was that I'd never leave. That I'd just absorb betrayal like a sponge and keep smiling through it. Then came Saturday. She had another business dinner. Same lie. Same red lipstick, same overdone perfume. I stood at the doorway as she adjusted her earrings, watching her with a strange sense of detachment, like I was observing a stranger play my wife in some poorly written play. "You sure you don't want me to drive you?" I asked, voice soft. She rolled her eyes, smirking. "You hate these things. Besides, it's all women." I almost laughed. She was good at this. So good. In fact, I had to remind myself that I used to believe her every time. Once she left, I didn't pour wine. I didn't cry. I didn't call Reina. I opened my laptop and began transferring everything. Joint finances, passwords, savings accounts, years of shared digital space being unnoted one click at a time. I was meticulous, cold even. And when I finished, I drafted an email. Not a rant, not a monologue, just bullet points. I know about him. I saw the messages, the card, the lies. I'm not angry anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm moving out next week. The lease is in your name. I've left the things you actually noticed in this relationship. My car keys, the Netflix login, and the coffee machine you said was too ugly for the kitchen. And then I attached a photo of the bouquet I'd given to Reina, the one Marina had laughed at. Captioned, "She kept them." I hit send and closed the laptop. I packed a single bag. Not everything, just what I needed to get through a few weeks. I didn't even leave a note. I didn't need to. The email said more than any dramatic goodbye ever could. That night, I didn't sleep in a hotel or on a friend's couch. I knocked on Reina's door. She answered in sweats. Hair up, no makeup. She looked surprised, but not shocked, like she'd somehow known this moment was coming all along. "I'm not here for anything," I said. "Just." Nowhere else felt real. She opened the door wider. "Come in. I just made tea." I stepped inside and realized how heavy I'd been carrying everything. It wasn't that I left Marina. It was that I finally came back to myself. But as much as I wanted to believe that was the end of it, it wasn't. Because the next morning, Marina showed up, and she wasn't alone. Reina's apartment was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that feels intentional. A soft hum of the kettle warming on the stove, the rustle of pages as she flipped through a book. She wasn't really reading. I was still in her guest room, sitting on the edge of the bed, wondering how long peace could last before chaos knocked on the door. The answer, it turns out, was 23 hours. Because at 9:41 a.m., the buzzer rang once, then again, then a third time, with the kind of urgency that only comes from someone who thinks the world owes them an explanation. Ria looked at me from the kitchen. I already knew. I walked to the intercom and pressed the button. "Yeah, Q, open the damn door." "Marina?" I didn't answer. I looked at Reina, who shrugged like this wasn't her first time being caught in someone else's drama. I opened the door anyway. I had to. I wanted this moment. I needed it. She stormed in like a woman on a mission. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. No, Marina walked in like I'd forgotten my place, like she was here to set things right. Her eyes scanned the apartment, then landed on Reyna, who was still standing by the kitchen, calm as ever, sipping tea like this was just another Sunday. "Oh," Marina said coldly. "So, it's her." I didn't flinch. "You're not surprised?" She turned to me, jaw tight. "No, I'm insulted." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're insulted? You left me, Hugh. You just vanished." "You were already gone," I said. "You just forgot to tell me." She folded her arms. "You think this little performance makes you look noble? You snuck out like a coward and ran to my friend." "She wasn't your friend," Reyna said calmly. "She just needed someone around to feel superior to." Marina's face flushed. "Stay out of this. I stayed out of it long enough." That's when I realized Rhea wasn't just standing up for me. She was standing up for herself, too. Marina used people like furniture, comfortable, silent, disposable. And Reyna. She'd seen enough. "You don't get to act like the victim," I told Marina. "I stayed. I gave you everything. And you treated me like background noise." She scoffed. "So what? You're suddenly the romantic hero now, running off with the girl who liked your gas station flowers." Reyna raised an eyebrow. "They were peonies." That stopped Marina for a second. "I don't know why, but it did. I didn't come here to argue," she said finally. "I came to say one thing. I made a mistake. I blinked." "Which one?" Her voice dropped. "I thought you'd always stay no matter what. And now you're here with her. And suddenly I realize how replaceable I made you feel. That's because you replaced me first." Silence. Then she said it. The most Marina thing she could have said. "So what now? You're just going to throw away 10 years, like they meant nothing?" "No," I said. "I'm just finally admitting that they meant more to me than they ever did to you." She looked at Rio one last time, then back at me. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have words, but because they didn't matter anymore. She wasn't here to make things right. She was here because she lost control. That's what really hurt her. She turned and walked out without slamming the door. And just like that, it was over. No shouting, no theatrics, just the sound of someone realizing they'd played the wrong game with the wrong person for too long. Rhea looked at me. "You okay?" she asked. "I think so." But the truth was, I didn't know what I was, because the final twist in all of this, it wasn't Marina. It was what I found in her car that night. The night after Marina's little ambush, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was hurt or angry. Those feelings had already burned out, but because I finally felt clear, like I could finally breathe after years of being underwater. I went for a walk to shake off the leftover adrenaline, and as I passed by Marina's parked car outside our old apartment, I saw something on the passenger seat. It wasn't hidden, just lying there like an afterthought, a printed itinerary. 2 names, 2 tickets. A romantic weekend booked a month ago. It was for next weekend, the same one she told me she had to go to her cousin's engagement party. There was his name again, the man she thought was her upgrade, and next to it, a reservation for a couple spa package, dinner for 2, and a note. Ask about honeymoon suite upgrade upon check-in. I didn't take a photo. I didn't send it to her. I didn't need to. That was her truth. That was her goodbye. The next morning, I dropped off my keys at the leasing office and signed the last bit of paperwork to remove my name from the lease. The apartment we shared for almost a decade would no longer have any trace of me. No coffee machine, no folded socks, no fresh flowers slowly dying in the kitchen window while she stared at her phone. Reyna met me outside with a box of pastries and a smile that didn't feel like pity. "Free, man?" she asked. I nodded. Finally, we sat on a bench and split a cherry Danish. She told me about a job she was thinking of taking in another city. I didn't panic. I didn't beg her to stay. I just listened the way she always had for me. Because whatever this was between us, it wasn't about filling a void. It was about starting something real. And if it wasn't meant to last, at least I finally knew what being seen felt like. Weeks passed. Then months, I got my own place. Small, quiet, mine. I started journaling again. Bought flowers for my desk just for me. I even picked up a pottery class, something Marina once mocked me for wanting to try. Turns out I'm not terrible at it. Reina visits sometimes more than just visits. But this story isn't about jumping from one woman to another. It's about finally realizing that staying where you're disrespected isn't loyalty. It's self-betrayal. Marina reached out once more. A short email. I get it now. You deserve more than I gave. I didn't respond. Some chapters don't need closure. They just need to close. So, if you've made it this far, thank you. I hope this story reminded you that even if someone laughs at your flowers, someone else might treasure them. Sometimes all it takes is handing them to the right person. You're on the Reddit Confessions channel. If you've ever experienced a moment where walking away gave you your life back, tell us in the comments. Or better yet, share an underrated historical event that taught you the power of second chances. Because sometimes the softest rebellion is simply choosing yourself. Thanks for listening.